Welcome back, everyone. As promised, I'm recording the recap of the Czech Ekstraliga, even though it's pretty heartbreaking for me to see those games again. If you didn't follow the games, it didn't go so well for me, as we will see, but let's jump right into it. So in the first game on Saturday, so these league weekends, I would say, are usually played on Saturday and on Sunday in the morning. In the first game on Saturday, I had the black pieces against Josef Havelka, who is a FIDE master with a rating of 2365. I had the black pieces, but still, of course, I wanted to win the game since I'm almost 200 elo points higher rated than my opponent was. So he played e4, I responded with e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and after knight f6 here he went for this Scotch gambit, I think it's called, with d4, e takes d4, e5. And here I already had a couple of games playing knight e4, but in this game I wanted to go for the other line with d5. So both moves are pretty normal for black here. But I thought maybe my opponent prepared for knight e4 since I think I had two recent games there, so I went for this move d5. So I'm attacking black's bishop on c4, so the bishop has to move, bishop e5, and here I went for knight d7, knight e4 being the other move, when after knight takes d4, bishop d7, bishop c5 will come, which is also fully playable for black. But knight d7, short castle, bishop e7, and here he surprised me a bit by going rook e1, and he played the opening so fast, which was yeah, just surprising to me. I knew that the main move is bishop takes e6. When after b takes e6, knight takes d4, black has the important idea knight b8. When black is totally fine, short castle will come c5, and I have the bishop pair. Of course, the pawn structure can be a bit of a target, but if black plays active enough, it shouldn't be something to worry about. But he went rook e1 first, short castle, and only now he took on d4, which now rook e1 is somewhat unnecessary, because often actually white wants to go f4, f5 when the rook is much better placed on f1 than on e1, and anyway the pawn on e5 cannot be captured if we go back to this variation. Knight takes e5 doesn't work because I assume just f4 or now rook e1 both look very dangerous for black. So that was a bit strange, and here came the next strange decision after knight c3, c5. Actually, I'm already better here, but he went very fast knight b5, and I thought I ran into some sort of trap here, but it turns out I'm already like, it's close to -1 here for black, so I'm already much better. At first, I thought that c6 is the move, but then I realized he can go knight d6, and after takes, queen d6, he has knight e4, and I will lose the pawn on c5 when I'm surely when white is surely not worse. If queen e7, there is bishop g5. This was the important point, and I cannot block this because of knight takes f6 when I'm losing the queen. So I went bishop e6, which is a good move. Also d4 right away is possible, with the idea that then later I can even put the bishop to b7 possibly, and also here I'm just much better. But I went for bishop e6, and now knight e2. The knight is on b5 is just very bad. So he has to retreat the knight to make space on c3. I played knight c6, knight f4, rook b8, and after knight to c3, I played knight d4. In general, I should have pushed d4, but I wasn't sure about my pawn structure here. But turns out I'm just doing really well. Knight d4. I'm not sure what is the recommendation now. c4. Yeah, just pushing these pawns here, and bishop on c1 also doesn't do much. But with knight d4, I was also more or less happy, and now he took on e6, which again I was happy to see, because now after f e6 the f file opens up for my rook. So knight takes e6 probably not the best. I was thinking in the game about something like b3 or knight e2 is also possible, just to exchange this knight. But he took, and now knight e4, and here I'm already close to winning actually. I played queen e8, which is good, and now all of his pieces are just, the knight on a4 doesn't do much, and all of my pieces are placed perfectly. He went c3, knight f5, and after b3 I went c4, again the best move. I was also thinking about queen g6 first, which might also be good, but I wasn't sure, because now I'm threatening knight h4, but I wasn't sure about moves like queen d3 was possible. Also g3 I did not see how to continue, because now after knight h4 he can go f4. This was at least my calculation. So I went c4, which is actually a good move, and the thing is, after b takes c4, d takes c4, now the knight on a4 doesn't do anything at all. If white has time to play bishop a3, then the pawn on c5 is actually a weakness. But here, now also the bishop on c1 doesn't do anything at all. Knight b2, bishop c5, again the best move. Here I was spending way too much time. I was thinking about queen c6 all the time, but bishop c5 is just so logical. I should just play it instantly, because anyway white cannot take on c4. It's just way too dangerous. I have all sorts of ideas. I can even think about taking here and going knight d6 just to get back the knight on c4, but I'm sure I would even have some better options like queen c6 or queen g6 when my attack is probably just crushing through. He played rook e2 and now queen c6. Apparently a small inaccuracy. Knight h4 is probably more flexible, because now I have both options, queen g6 and queen h4 both queen g6 and queen c6 at my disposal. But I went queen c6 right away, queen f1, and now rook f7. I just wanted to double rooks here, but the computer turns out bishop b6 is better, which also is way more logical, because after rook f7 I'm just giving this pawn, where of course I have way more compensation. I mean, I'm still much better, but with bishop b6, white still needs to work to get this pawn and to actually activate his knight. In the game I thought he can move the rook to either d2 or c2 and then take on c4 with the queen, but yeah, it all looks quite slow here. Even knight e3 is winning on the spot, which I totally missed. Let's just see what happens after rook c2, queen e4. And then the queen will swing over to g4 when I'm, again, much better. So rook f7 he took, rook f8, knight e3, bishop b6. Again, not the best move. Knight h4 apparently is a bit better. And here after knight d1, now he somewhat defended everything, and I was already really low on time, and I just went h6, which is actually a good move. In some cases, white has bishop g5 ideas, and I'm also making this luft for the king on h7. So I went a4, which surprised me, because after a5, now the pawn on a4 is actually more of a weakness than a strength. Rook b2, rook d8, rook d2, and after takes, I went queen d5, which is probably the wrong plan. I should just play for activity. I was also thinking about rook fd7 here, which is actually much stronger, and after takes, just rook d7 when white cannot develop any of his pieces here, and he cannot also move the knight, because then the pawn on c3 is always hanging. So this I would have probably won. I was very close to playing rook d7, but then just my reflex kicked in. I wanted to win back the pawn, but which actually is not a good idea, because now his pieces somewhat get active. Knight b2 and knight c4 is coming. Again, knight h4 would have been better when white still has a lot of trouble developing his pieces. After knight b2, apparently I have rook f4 now when rook g4 is coming. So yeah, queen e5, and now it gets not so easy. Knight b2, knight e3 I still saw, but he has knight c4, which is the only defense. Because if he moves queen e2, here I did see something. I think it was queen g5 or queen e4 what I wanted to play. When he cannot take on e3, because here if king h1 I have rook f1 checkmate, and if bishop f2 I can take with the rook, or probably with the rook is just winning on the spot, because now I always have this discovery and I'm winning the rook. Yeah, but yeah, he found knight c4, knight takes c4, queen c4, and now I realized that it's not going to be easy to win this. Queen b5, queen d5, because if I take here, I thought it will be similar to the game, even a better version for me, but still I thought this sort of position is not really winnable for me. Now I can bring the king, but yeah, this is already very close to equality. So I wanted to keep queens on the board. Now he can take, but if he goes for this endgame, at least I have a better pawn structure, and his rook is very passive. I can move my rook to c4, when his defensive task is still not so easy, at least practically. So he went king f1, just stepping out of this this unpleasant stuff with the f-pawn. King f7, activating the king, queen e2. So here we were both in time trouble, and yeah, didn't play such great moves. I think the computer wanted to go into this endgame just. And after queen e2, I had this chance with rook h4, which I totally didn't see. The point is, after h3, I can take on h3 with the rook. After king h1, king g1, I actually don't see what is the what is the point here? Just something like king e7, yeah, not entirely easy to play these moves. But I went queen c6, queen h5 check, and now I went king g8 back. Again, seconds on the clock. King e7 is more logical if you think about it like this, because in the end games the king will be much more active here. But I was understandably a bit scared to move the king to e7, even though it turns out to be pretty safe here. So I went king g8, queen b5, queen d5, and now he went rook c1, which gave me the last chance of the game, but I did not manage to see it. It was the 40th move. So I just played rook c4, defending against c4, but I actually had rook a2 here, queen a2 here, when I just have a double attack on the pawn on f2 and the pawn on a4, which is actually not that hard to see. So about this chance, I'm really upset, because probably I would just win this game. I don't even see what he can do. Maybe he can play f3, but I'm just taking on a4, and there's just nothing for him to do. If queen e8 check, I can just go to h7 with the king. So queen a2 is really not that hard. I went rook c4 instead, but now he found rook d1. And now I have to go for the endgame. I can also take on d1, but after queen c4, I can definitely not be better here. Now my pawn is also fixed on a dark square, which would potentially be good for white in the endgame. So I decided to take on b5, rook c5, rook b1, and after a4 I offered a draw, because I will just push my a-pawn. And now I'm already threatening rook takes b5, because now if he takes I have a2. So I thought something like rook a1, rook b5, rook a3, and it's just a draw. So I offered a draw here after a4, which he accepted. But yeah, this was the first game which I was already quite upset about, because I just had so many chances. I was much better out of the opening, and just didn't manage to convert the win. So the second game, this was the really heartbreaking one. I had the white pieces against a young Czech player, Smolik Jachim, rating of 2278. So usually my white games, especially against players from this rating range, I usually win, because I think my white repertoire also fits very well against this sort of rating range, because I play very positional, and usually players from that rating struggle against me. And I think it was also so as you can see, I lost that game, which was just really heartbreaking. And I think I don't even remember when was the last time that I lost one white game, because usually I'm very safe with the white pieces. And yeah, I don't know what to say. Let's just let's just look at the game. So I went knight f3, d5, g3, and he went knight d7, which is a pretty modern line. The idea is black wants to push e5, so white usually goes d4, and now knight b6. So black wants to get some sort of London system when he gets bishop f5 on the next move, and if white plays very logical moves, black actually equalizes very quickly with e6, and white doesn't even get c4 that fast, because the knight on b6 is protecting against that. So I went a4 here, and here I had one idea in the opening, which is after a5 to go queen d3, which looks a bit strange, but my idea is just I'm stopping bishop f5 from the moment, which he wants to play, and bishop g4 usually runs into some knight e5, which he also doesn't want to allow. Bishop has to go to h5 when there are some ideas here. There's even sometimes the idea to go queen f5, bishop g6, queen h3. This is often an idea to threaten to take on g6 when black cannot capture with the h-pawn. Here probably it doesn't work because there's bishop c2. But there is this idea and some other variations. So my opponent played g6, which is a bit inaccurate. What I remembered was knight f6, and after bishop g2, now g6, because now I cannot go e4 when I have to go for a different plan here. But at least here I provoked him to go g6, which usually he doesn't want to do. But he went g6 right away, and now he allowed me to go e4. And now we have this sort of Caro-Kann type of position, or Scandinavian, when I'm a bit better because I have more space and the bishop on g2 is very active. He went c6 and now c4, a good move, because the knight on b6 is just completely out of play. If the knight were on a6, it would be a totally different story, because then black can take control of the weak square on b4. Bishop e6, another move that surprised me, because now I just go b3, and bishop is not doing much here. I thought he should probably give the bishop with bishop g4, when I would have played something like knight d2 probably, or rook d1. And I'm also better because I will get the bishop here. He went bishop e6, I just went b3, knight c8, another move that was kind of surprising because the knight really doesn't go anywhere. Just bishop b2, rook e8, another move that I didn't fully understand. Now h3, so I'm not even giving him the chance anymore to exchange his bishop. Queen b6, knight d2, and it's already +2 here, which I'm also not surprised to see, because all of his pieces are just placed horribly. Queen a6, also not so clear what it's doing. Knight e5 just, knight d6, g4, +2.3 here for me, not surprising. Just taking the f5 square from black's knight, rook d8. Now, rook 81 I think was important, because if I go f4 right away, he has the chance to go bishop d5, when I cannot take with the c-pawn because my queen on e2 is hanging, and otherwise he gets to exchange this this bad bishop. Even here I'm probably much better, but I didn't want to allow that. So I went rook e1, knight d7, f4, this was the plan, and knight f8. Whenever he takes on e5, I just take back with this pawn, then the knight has to move to this ugly square on c8, knight e4, and it's just completely over, because knight c5 is coming, knight g5 is coming. Yeah. So he went knight f8, now king h1. I was also thinking about going to the endgame here with c5, queen e2, rook e2, when he has to go knight c8. When in this sort of position, the pawn on a5 will probably sooner or later fall, and this should also be pretty easily winning for me. So maybe I should have gone to the endgame right away. But I thought my position is just so good, there is no point to do that. I went king h1, and now he went f6, which does make sense, because he just doesn't have any other plan here. F6, knight d3, and he went back with the bishop. Now knight c5, queen a7, and here I went f5, which I already during the game I wasn't sure if I should actually do that. But I really wanted to just clamp down black's pieces for good here. Probably I can just do something slow as well, like move the knight or move the queen, double rooks on the e-file. It's all logical and should be just very, very good for me. But I went f5, now e6, I took on g6 now. If I take on e6, then after knight e6, originally I think I intended to go queen f2 here, but then I saw that he can go f5 when actually all of a sudden his pieces are opening up. And yeah, here I'm not that much better anymore. So I took on g6, h6, g6, now knight e3. That was good, because now the knight on c5 actually did its job, and I'm just going back. And after g5, now c5 +3 the position, yeah. But I was just spending so much time here. Now I'm only at 13 minutes, and with such little time, it became not so easy to find the right moves then anymore. c5 was logical. I'm pushing back the knight to c8, and now I have knight e4 for my knight without getting the knights exchange. Knight h7, and here again I spent way too much time coming down to 7 minutes only, and I went rook f3 with the idea to double on the f-file. Turns out that h4 is basically ending the game on the spot, because after g takes h4 I have g5 when all of my pieces are opening up, and yeah, just look at black's queen on a7, it doesn't do anything. So h4 would have ended the game basically on the spot. So I went rook f3, bishop g6, queen f2. Rook f8, because I thought I have some ideas to sacrifice on f6, so he wanted to defend against that. Again, here h4 seems to be winning. This was one of my ideas actually, but I did not really see what happens if he takes on h4. I have knight f4, okay. That was not really obvious to me. Knight g5, rook e6, okay. Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure about this, because I only saw queen h4 here. And now bishop e4, knight g5. Even this is winning for me. Yeah, this is crazy. I'm even losing the exchange here, and still I'm basically completely winning. My position is just so good. But I went knight d2 instead, with the idea that I want to regroup the knight to c4, and also the pawn on e6 is hanging now. It did allow e5, but I thought I'm just going back, and then the position is opening just more, which is actually good for me. E d4, bishop d4, rook d4, queen d4, f5, and here I went knight d5, which is also a good move. Even Also queen d7 is winning here with the point. After f takes e4, I have queen e6 check, which I think I somewhat missed. And after bishop f7, I think rook f7, and here just queen c8, and just completely over. So queen d7, maybe even better, but I went knight e5, takes, rook e8, queen d4. There were like many things are winning here. I think even g takes f5 here was winning. Rook e5 and take on g6, and still he's playing without a queen basically, and they're winning just a lot of material here. Yeah, plus 2.5 also. But I went for this, queen d4, f takes e4, and here was the completely insane blunder. I went rook f6 when instead of winning, I'm just losing the game. Originally I intended to go rook e3, which is also the best move, and it's still +2 here, and I think with little time I would win the game in just a couple of moves. The only move not to lose the game right away for black is b5, which I didn't think about at all. Like, I just don't understand why I didn't go rook e3. It's so logical. Bishop takes e4 is coming on the next move, and yeah, I mean, I thought about something like queen b8, and after bishop e4 takes everything, and all of his pieces are just doing absolutely nothing. The knight cannot develop, the queen is still doing nothing, rook e8 is coming, queen d8 is coming. Maybe even queen d8 right away is also possible. So this is just completely over rook e3. But for some completely ununderstandable reason, I went rook f6, just panicking with low time, and after knight f6, queen f6, I just missed that he has king h1. I only saw that he can move the bishop when I thought the attack is very dangerous. Even this is maybe not so clear. Yeah, I mean, even this is equal. Yeah? So I just don't get it why I went rook f6. It really haunts me even today, one day after the game. It's just such a stupid decision to go rook f6. Rook e3 is so easy, and yeah, just take on e4 like a normal human being. But I went rook f6 instead, and after takes king h7, I realized that I just have nothing. Now I don't have any attackers anymore, and after queen b8, now his queen is just coming into the game. He's stopping rook d7, queen h4, if h4, he just can go, I think it was queen e7, no, e3 was the point here, and if h5, bishop c2, and I'm just lost. So I tried queen h4 check and g5, but just rook h8 and queen e5, and he can just block the check. And now his pawn is just running, and yeah, here I resigned because rook d1 is coming. So, I mean, that was just super heartbreaking, and I just don't get it, how things like this can happen, especially since it's almost end of the year, and I had one rating goal in mind, which is 2550, and I was on a really good way there with a live rating of, even a FIDE rating of 2536, and now losing this game and drawing the other game, I'm again 10 points down, and it's just really disappointing to see that. And I just hope that the European Championship, which will start on Friday, will go really well, because yeah, this is a very important event for me. Also because of the World Cup qualification, which is super hard, but it is my goal for that event. And yeah, I just hope these sorts of things will not happen anymore. I mean, as you can see, it can happen to everyone, these sorts of games, but it's just yeah, it's just heartbreaking, this moment. And in general, the whole game I was basically winning from move 10, and then just spending unnecessary amounts of time, and in the end just blundered. So yeah, I still hope you enjoyed the recap of the weekend, guys, and the recaps for the European Championship will start on Friday. So let me know if you're looking forward to the event as much as I am. I'm seated, I think, on 80th place or something, so it's gonna be a super strong event. And other than that, thank you guys for watching, and see you in the upcoming videos.